The first reply didn't come from her brother. It came from a number she didn't recognize, and it came with $5,000. Mara Jensen stared at the message on her cracked phone screen, rereading it until the glow blurred her eyes. The transaction notification sat beneath her text from 20 minutes earlier. The one she'd meant for her brother Ben, typed in a rush of panic while standing in the baby aisle at the 24-hour grocery. "Hey, I'm so sorry to ask again, but can I borrow $50? Noah's formula is almost gone. I'll pay you back next week. Please don't tell Mom." She'd sent it and waited, heart pounding, knowing he'd probably ignore it. Ben was kind but broke, and tired of rescuing her from the same cycle of bills and empty bottles. But now her phone buzzed again. "Buy what you need. Don't pay me back." Mira's fingers froze above the screen. The contact name simply read, "Unknown." The photo thumbnail was blank. "Who is this?" she typed. No response. "You must have the wrong person. I was trying to text my brother." Still nothing. Only that quiet hum of the store lights and the distant cry of another baby down the aisle. Mara's son stirred in the stroller beside her, his small face pinched and red. She bent down, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's got it." She didn't believe herself. Her rent was overdue, her checking account was negative $42, and her part-time hours at the clinic had been cut again. There was no "got it." There was just surviving another day. But then her phone buzzed once more. "You texted the right person?" Her breath caught. The words were simple, clean, and oddly deliberate. Not the casual shorthand of someone tossing money away on a mistake. She scrolled back up, reread them, then looked around the store as if someone was watching her. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "What kind of joke is this?" She tapped out another message. "Who are you?" A long pause. Then, "Someone who doesn't like to see babies go hungry." She stared at that line for a full minute before her rational mind kicked in. This had to be some sort of scam. Maybe a hacker trying to lure her into sending personal information. Maybe a pity stunt. She wasn't naive enough to believe in miracles, and yet her banking app really did show $5,000. Deposited, cleared, immediate. "Holy," she started, then clamped a hand over her mouth as Noah whimpered. She walked to the counter, numb, bought 3 tins of formula, diapers, and a box of wipes. She almost expected the card to decline when she swiped it, but the green light flashed, approved. When she got home that night, she fed Noah, tucked him into the crib, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone again. The same question ran circles in her head. What kind of person does this? She finally typed, "Thank you, but I can't accept this. Please tell me who you are so I can return it." No answer. She left the message open until sleep took her, phone still in hand, the blue light of the screen reflecting in her tired eyes. The next morning, Mara woke to a single new text. "If you really want to repay me, buy yourself one thing that isn't for survival, one thing that makes you breathe again." She stared at it. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she hadn't bought anything unnecessary in almost 2 years. Still, part of her wanted to believe the message came from someone human, not cruel, someone who meant it. So that afternoon, she stopped at a thrift store on the way home from work and bought a used copy of a book she'd loved as a student, The Structure of Molecules in Organic Systems. $5. The irony made her smile. She used to dream of finishing her degree in biochemistry. She texted back before she could overthink it. "Done. Thank you. I hope your kindness finds its way back to you." A few minutes later, the response came. It already did. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard. "Who are you, really?" she almost asked again, but didn't. The conversation ended there. 3 days passed. The message faded into the background noise of bills, formula feeds, and the low hum of exhaustion that came from raising a baby alone. But then, at 8:00 p.m. on Thursday, while she was rocking Noah to sleep, her phone buzzed again. "Do you still want to pay me back?" She frowned. "Yes. Of course. It's the right thing to do. Then meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Helix Tower, 47th floor. Ask for me by name." What name? Jackson Albright. The name hit like static in her chest. She knew it. Everyone in the city did. Helix Core, a global biotech conglomerate, billion-dollar valuation, experimental cancer research, AI-based genomic analytics, philanthropic grants, and its founder, Jackson Albright. Mira's first instinct was disbelief. This had to be a joke. She almost laughed, almost deleted the thread, but the tone of the messages hadn't felt like a prank. Whoever it was had paid through legitimate channels, not some Cash App link. She spent half the night researching him. Every photo she found was the same. Tailored suits, solemn expression, no family. The kind of man who looked allergic to small talk. The next morning she told herself she wouldn't go, that it was safer to ignore this entirely. And yet at 9:53 a.m., she was standing in the marble lobby of Helix Tower, clutching a diaper bag and trying not to look like someone who hadn't slept in months. The receptionist looked up as she approached. "Can I help you?" I, have a meeting with Jackson Albright?" The woman's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Do you have an appointment?" "He told me to come," Mira said, heat rising to her cheeks. "By text." Something flickered across the receptionist's expression. Curiosity, maybe sympathy, before she typed something into her screen. One moment, then the elevator light blinked green. "You can go up." Mira hesitated. "Just like that?" The receptionist smiled faintly. "Just like that." The 47th floor was nothing like the world she knew. Polished steel, frosted glass, a single panoramic view of the city stretching out like a map of power and distance. And in the middle of it all, behind a wall of light and shadow, sat the man himself. Jackson Albright looked up from a screen as the elevator doors opened. He was taller than she expected, dressed in a simple gray shirt instead of a suit. No entourage, no security, just quiet authority. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. "Mara Jensen," he said, her name precise on his tongue. "You came," her voice caught. "I thought this was a mistake." "Most meaningful things start that way," he said. "Please sit." She did carefully, as though the chair might collapse under the weight of her uncertainty. He studied her for a moment, then turned the screen toward her. Her original message glowed there in the soft blue light. "Hey, I'm so sorry to ask again, but can I borrow $50? Noah's formula is almost gone." He spoke quietly. "You texted me by mistake, but you reminded me what need looks like. I forgot." Mira swallowed hard. "Why send so much?" "I didn't ask for charity." He smiled faintly. "Not condescending, but thoughtful. That's why I sent it." They sat in silence for a moment, the city murmuring beneath them. Finally he said, "You worked in research, didn't you?" "Biochemistry." Her heart jumped. "How do you know that?" "I looked you up," he admitted. "You left a good project before it finished. May I ask why?" She hesitated. "Because life doesn't pause for people who can't afford it." He nodded slowly. "Then let's fix that." Mara frowned. "What do you mean?" "I have a position open," Jackson said, "in internal analytics. Your skills fit. If you want it, it's yours. No charity, just work, a chance to breathe again." Her pulse quickened. "You don't even know me." His eyes held hers. "I know enough." Mira looked down at her hands, then at the faint reflection of herself in the glass wall behind him. Tired, small, unremarkable, and yet for the first time in years she felt seen. Maybe this was reckless. Maybe it was wrong. But something in his voice made her believe this wasn't a transaction. It was a beginning. She took a slow breath. "When do I start?" Jackson smiled, the smallest shift of his features. "You already have." Mira had never worked anywhere that smelled like money before. Helix Core's lobby gleamed with impossible perfection, glass polished to the point of invisibility, soft hums of automation echoing like whispers. Everyone moved with quiet purpose, and Mara felt like an intruder walking through a dream she wasn't supposed to see. Her first week was spent mostly listening. Jackson's assistant, Ava Lynn, handed her a tablet loaded with orientation materials, though orientation was a generous word. There were no welcome slides or pep talks, just access codes, encrypted emails, and a list of data systems that required her credentials. "You'll be working directly under Mr. Albright," Ava explained, tapping through the files. "Internal analytics, no formal department. It's specialized work." Mira raised a brow. Specialized how? Ava smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. You'll find out soon enough. Jackson doesn't hire anyone by accident. On her second day, she learned what that meant. Her workstation was a minimalist corner of the 42nd floor. One glass wall overlooking the skyline, the other displaying a cascading feed of digital ledgers. The data was hypnotic. Line after line of transactions, grants, and purchase orders, each stamped with timestamps precise to the millisecond. It should have felt intimidating. Instead, it felt familiar. The same rhythm she used to find in lab reports, the same puzzle-like logic. She dove in. By the end of the first week, she'd already noticed something odd. Among the thousands of legitimate transactions, one name kept surfacing: Trinox Solutions. Always small invoices, always approved within seconds, and always routed through different subsidiaries. At first, she dismissed it. Large corporations use third-party vendors constantly, but Trinox didn't appear on any vendor list she could access. Curiosity turned into obsession. She began tracing patterns late into the night, her apartment lit only by the glow of her laptop and the quiet breathing of her sleeping son. Every thread she pulled led to another, until she realized Trinox wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. The company didn't exist. Its tax ID was a mirror of another vendor's, flipped digits hiding inside the accounting stream. Someone had built a ghost pipeline inside Helix Core's financial system, and whoever it was had been doing it for months. Monday morning, she walked into Jackson's office, her nerves coiled tight. He was at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a cup of untouched coffee cooling beside his laptop. He looked up when she entered. "You found something," he said, reading her face before she spoke. She hesitated. "I think I did." "Show me." She crossed to his desk and set down her tablet. Trinox Solutions. It appears on almost every division ledger. Small, irregular amounts, but consistent. The transactions are routed through internal authorization, but the vendor profile is fake. Whoever's doing this knows your system architecture inside and out. Jackson leaned forward, scanning the data. His expression didn't change, but a faint muscle ticked in his jaw. "How long have you been seeing this?" "A few days," Mara said. "I wanted to be sure before bringing it to you." "Good instinct." He clicked through the files, then looked up. "Do you understand what this means?" "That someone's stealing from you," she said. "More than that," he replied quietly. "It means they're inside, deep inside." For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the air system filled the silence. Finally, Mara asked, "Should I report it to security?" "No," he said sharply, then softer. "Not yet," she frowned. "Why not?" "Because security answers to the board," he said, "and I'm not sure I can trust the board anymore." That sent a chill down her spine. "You think this is an inside job?" "I know it is," he said. "I just don't know whose hands are dirty." He stood, walked to the window and stared at the city far below. "You understand, Ms. Jensen, what you found isn't just fraud, it's leverage. Whoever's running this has access to our research budgets, our public funds, and our federal contracts. If they're smart, they've already buried the evidence. But you saw it." Mira folded her arms. "What do you want me to do?" Jackson turned back to her. "Keep looking, quietly. You'll report directly to me, no one else. And if someone asks why I'm digging through restricted data, tell them you're doing what I hired you for," he said. "Finding mistakes." There was a glint in his eyes when he said it, something between admiration and warning. The next few weeks blurred into a rhythm of numbers and secrets. Mira became invisible in plain sight. Employees passed her in the hallways without recognition, assuming she was just another contractor. Ava occasionally stopped by her desk with fresh credentials or updates from Jackson. "Keep your head down," Ava advised once. "Helix isn't the kind of place where curiosity gets rewarded." But curiosity was all Mara had. She uncovered over 40 payments routed through Trinox, totaling nearly $3 million. Each authorization carried an encrypted signature traceable to the same access ID, VH009. She didn't need to guess who that was. Vincent Harmon, Chief Financial Officer. She met him a week later, by accident. He appeared in the elevator one morning, a tall man with polished charm, and a smile too perfect to trust. "You must be the new analyst," he said, his tone smooth, practiced. "Mira, right?" "Yes," she said cautiously. "Jackson speaks highly of you." He gave a small, knowing grin. "Which is saying something. He doesn't usually notice anyone who isn't made of binary code." Mira forced a polite smile. "I'm just doing my job." "I'm sure you are," he said, his gaze lingering a moment too long. "Welcome to Helix." When he stepped off on the 40th floor, she exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Something about him made her skin crawl, like he already knew what she'd found. That night, she sent Jackson a message. "We need to talk. I think I know who's behind it." His reply came within seconds. "Not here. Meet me in the sublevel archives." 9 p.m. The sublevel archives were nothing like the pristine glass floors above. Concrete walls, dim lights, the hum of old servers forgotten by modernization. Mira arrived early, heart racing. Jackson was already there, his expression tight. "You shouldn't have texted specifics," he said quietly. "Assume every system in this building is monitored." "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't think—" "No one does at first," he said, but not unkindly. Then he gestured to the monitor. "Show me." She connected her drive and pulled up the ledger trail. "Here, the authorization ID, VH009. That's Vincent Harmon's clearance." Jackson studied the data, his jaw tightening with each passing second. "He's been CFO for 6 years. He's the one who helped me take Helix public." "Maybe that's how he knows the system well enough to hide inside it," she said. He turned to her. "If you're right, this isn't just embezzlement. It's a coup." She swallowed. "What do we do?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, she saw not the billionaire or the boss, but the man carrying something heavy and silent. "We gather proof," he said, "and when we have it, we make sure there's nowhere left for him to run." The elevator ride back to the surface was quiet. Jackson stood beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the doors. "You didn't have to help me," he said finally. "You didn't have to answer my text," she replied. He smiled faintly. "Touché." When the doors opened, he turned to her. "From here on, trust no one, not even the people who smile at you." "Does that include you?" she asked. He hesitated. "Especially me." And then he was gone, leaving her standing in the gleaming hallway with her reflection staring back. The image of a woman who had stepped into a world of power, secrets, and danger, all because of one wrong number. The city lights outside Helix Tower looked like scattered diamonds, cold, distant, and untouchable. Mira sat in her apartment, the hum of the baby monitor the only sound breaking the silence. She couldn't sleep, not after what she'd seen in the data. The numbers didn't lie. Vincent Harmon wasn't just stealing, he was restructuring Helix Core from the inside out. Every small disguised transaction funneled into Trinox Solutions wasn't random. It was systemic, organized, precise, like a machine programmed for betrayal. She glanced at the clock, 1:27 a.m., then at the unopened message on her phone. It was from Jackson hours earlier. "Good work. Don't move on Trinox yet. I'm verifying something first." Verifying what, she wondered. She thought of Jackson's expression in the sub-level archives, that quiet, dangerous calm that said he'd seen this kind of treachery before. He hadn't looked shocked when she showed him Vincent's name, only disappointed, and that terrified her more than anything else. By morning, Helix was buzzing with rumors. Mira caught fragments of hushed conversations in the elevator, in cafeteria. "Did you hear about the audits? Compliance is tightening again. Albright's been down in finance twice this week. Something's up." Ava appeared at her desk before noon, silent as a shadow. She placed a slim folder in front of Mira. "Mr. Albright wants you to review these," she said, quietly. Mira flipped it open. Inside were paper printouts, something she hadn't seen in years. "Analog records?" she asked. Ava's lips curved slightly. "Digital systems can be traced. Paper burns." Mira's chest tightened. "What am I looking at?" "Old payroll reconciliations. Before Helix went public." Mira frowned. "That was over 6 years ago." Why? Because that's when the first Trinox pattern appeared, Ava said, lowering her voice. He's known for a while, Mara. He just didn't have the proof until you walked in. Mara looked up sharply. He knew? Ava nodded once. Vincent's been bleeding this company dry in micro-cuts for years. Albright suspected him, but Vincent's clever. He made it look like rounding errors. Noise in the system. You connected the last dots. So what happens now? Ava hesitated. That depends on how far you're willing to go. Later that evening, Jackson summoned her again. His office lights were dimmed, the skyline a living mural behind him. He motioned for her to sit without looking up from his screen. I assume Ava briefed you, he said. She told me you've suspected Vincent for years. I've suspected everyone for years, he said, voice cool. But Vincent had access, motive, and timing. When the company went public, he convinced the board to let him handle offshore accounts. That's when Trinox was born. Mara studied him carefully. And you never confronted him? Not without evidence, Jackson said. Helix runs on trust. If I accuse my CFO and fail to prove it, I lose that trust forever. So you waited for someone desperate enough to text you by mistake, she said softly. That earned her the faintest smirk. I don't believe in accidents, Miss Jensen. He leaned back, eyes sharp. Tell me what you think Vincent's endgame is. Mara hesitated. He's consolidating control. The siphoned funds aren't just for profit, they're strategic. He's building a shadow network of subsidiaries. If you were removed or discredited, he'd have the infrastructure to take Helix with him. Jackson nodded slowly, as if confirming a private theory. Then we stop him before he makes the first move. How? With leverage. He stood and crossed to a wall panel. A quiet click, and part of the wall slid open to reveal a small glass safe. Inside, folders and data drives rested in precise order. Jackson retrieved one marked Project Aegis and handed it to her. What's this? Proof that Helix's cancer trial data was tampered with 3 years ago. Not by external hackers, but internally. Vincent covered it up to protect share prices. Mira's stomach dropped. You're saying he endangered patients? Jackson's eyes darkened. He altered data, not treatments. But if this ever went public, the fallout would destroy the company. That's what he's been holding over me. Mira opened the folder, scanning the data sheets. So if you expose him, he exposes you. Precisely, he said. Which means we can't go public. Not yet. She looked up. Then what do you want me to do? Help me dismantle him from the inside. The air between them thickened. Mira felt the weight of every choice pressing down. Her son's future, her conscience, her safety. You're asking me to commit corporate espionage, she said quietly. Jackson met her gaze. I'm asking you to save a company that funds real cures and stop a man who treats lives like assets. Mira exhaled slowly. And if we fail? Then you walk away clean, he said. This stays between us, always. For the next few days, Mira lived 2 lives. By day, she was a quiet analyst running budget reconciliations. By night, she sifted through Trinox digital ghosts. Each discovery deepened the maze. Offshore shell companies in Zurich, Dubai, and Singapore, all feeding back into a holding structure under an anonymous trust, and always the same signature, VH09. At one point, she caught herself staring at her reflection in the black mirror of her monitor. Hollow eyes, trembling hands. What are you doing, Mira? She whispered. You're a mother, not a spy. Noah's faint cry through the baby monitor answered her, and she remembered why she was doing this at all. By the end of the week, she had enough data to map Vincent's entire scheme. But before she could encrypt and deliver it to Jackson, her screen flickered. A single message appeared. Nice work, Ms. Jensen. Next time, close your backdoor logs. Her blood ran cold. She checked the metadata. The message had come from an internal Helix server. Encrypted, unsigned. Someone was watching her. She didn't wait. That night, she went straight to Jackson's penthouse office, heart hammering. He opened the door before she could knock twice, as though he'd been expecting her. You've been compromised, she blurted. Someone inside knows what I'm doing. Jackson's expression hardened instantly. How do you know? She showed him the message on her tablet. His jaw clenched. Vincent, he muttered, he's tightening his net. What do we do? He turned, pacing to the window. We push forward faster. If he's watching you, he thinks he has control. Let's make him believe that until we don't. Mira shook her head. That's dangerous. Everything worth doing is, he said simply. He looked at her, his gaze softening. I can protect you, Mira. You and Noah. Something in his tone stopped her. It wasn't arrogance. It was sincerity, stripped raw. She nodded slowly. Then tell me the plan. He moved to his desk, pulling up a schematic. We're setting a trap. Vincent's expecting you to keep digging. You'll continue as if nothing happened, but feed him decoy data. Altered reports showing a fake audit trail. Meanwhile, Keller and I will use his reaction to trace his access points in real time. Keller? A forensic accountant, Jackson said. Former FBI. She'll be our inside ghost. Mira frowned. And what happens when Vincent realizes it's bait? Jackson's expression was ice. By then, he'll already have walked himself into a federal sting. It was past midnight when she finally left. The building was silent except for the hum of servers and the whisper of air conditioning. As she walked toward the elevator, her phone buzzed again. A new message. Be careful what you dig for, Ms. Jensen. Some graves collapse. Her throat tightened. No signature. No sender ID. She turned slowly, half expecting to see someone watching her. The hallway was empty, but as she stepped into the elevator, she couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves were listening. For the first time since all this began, she wondered if she'd texted the wrong man in more ways than one. The message haunted her for days. Be careful what you dig for, Ms. Jensen. Some graves collapse. It wasn't just a warning. It was a threat, one written in the kind of calm confidence that only came from someone certain they were untouchable. Mira deleted it immediately, but the words replayed in her mind during every quiet moment, during feedings, commutes, even in the sterile hush of her Helix workstation. Every time she looked at her reflection in the black glass of her monitor, she half expected to see someone else's face staring back. Jackson kept his distance that week, communicating only through Ava or encrypted notes. It wasn't coldness, it was strategy. If Vincent was watching, any visible alliance between them could expose everything. Still, she felt the silence stretch into something sharp. When the first move came, it was subtle. Helix's internal communication board announced a new data integrity audit for the analytics department, mandatory compliance reviews, random checks on digital behavior. The kind of thing that looked harmless to everyone else but sent ice through Mira's veins. Vincent Harmon was heading the audit. Ava appeared beside her desk, expression tight. You've got 5 minutes to wipe everything non-essential. Mira's pulse spiked. They're coming here? Ava nodded once. They'll pull workstation logs, message history, external drives. The works. Mira's hands flew across the keyboard, encrypting the drive where she stored her mirrored copies of the Trinox transactions. When she finished, she slid it into a hollow compartment under her keyboard tray, a feature Jackson had shown her himself. She had just closed the panel when Vincent entered the room. Ms. Jensen, his tone was smooth as oil. Compliance day. Don't mind us. Just routine housekeeping. He smiled, that easy, charming smile that didn't touch his eyes. 2 IT officers followed him, setting up diagnostic tools beside her workstation. Of course, she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. Happy to help. Vincent leaned against the divider, pretending casual interest as the scan ran. You've adapted well here. Jackson's little pet projects usually burn out after a week. Mira didn't rise to the bait. I like to think I'm efficient, he chuckled. Oh, you're something, all right. When the IT officer looked up and said, All clear, sir, Vincent's smile thinned. Good. Thank you, gentlemen. He waited until they left, then lowered his voice. Careful, Ms. Jensen. Curiosity is expensive in this company. She held his gaze, her heartbeat hammering. So is corruption. His smile froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough for her to know she'd hit a nerve. Then he turned and walked out without another word. That evening, she found a note under her keyboard. No signature, just Jackson's handwriting. He's testing your fear. Don't let him see it. Keller arrives tomorrow. Be ready. The next day, Keller walked into her life. a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with cropped hair and a voice like gravel on glass. "Jackson told me you're the one who found the cracks," Keller said, sitting beside Mira's desk. "You've got guts. Most analysts would have buried this under a new password and gone home." "I didn't really have a choice," Mira said quietly. "Good answer," Keller said. "That means you're dangerous to the right people." She leaned closer. "We're going to trap him, but to do that, we need him to think he's already won." Mira frowned. "You mean let him see fake data?" "Exactly. I've created a dummy trail. Looks like you've been trying to siphon small amounts yourself, using a fake shell under your name. Vincent's paranoia will make him jump at it. When he does, we'll trace his login and catch him in real time." Mira swallowed hard. "So I'm the bait," Keller smirked. "Welcome to the club." The plan unfolded over the next 48 hours. Mira uploaded Keller's decoy ledger into the system, creating a believable pattern of fake embezzlement. Every entry was time-stamped with her own ID, every digital fingerprint screaming, "Amateur thief." It made her sick to watch. By the end of the second day, the bait was set. Jackson stayed off-site, monitoring through Keller's private network. Ava managed internal chatter, spreading whispers of a potential security concern, just enough to reach Vincent's ears. They didn't have to wait long. At 10:43 p.m., while Mira was finishing a false report, a notification flashed across her screen. "Unauthorized remote access detected." "He's in," Keller said from her console, eyes flicking over the data feed. "Trace confirmed. IP routes through Vincent's private server. He's trying to open your mirrored drive." "Can he see it?" Mira asked, voice trembling. "Not yet," Keller said. "He's cautious, masking his entry behind proxy layers." Jackson's voice came through the encrypted line. "Let him. I want his signature on the trigger file." They watched in tense silence as the data scrolled by. Then, click. "He took the bait," Keller said. "He's copying the decoy audit files." Jackson's tone was ice. "And now we have him." But Vincent wasn't stupid. 2 hours later, a company-wide alert pinged through Helix Core's internal network. "Security breach detected. Internal analyst under investigation. All financial systems temporarily locked, pending compliance review." Mara's stomach plummeted. "He flipped it," Keller muttered. "He's trying to frame you before the evidence hits the board." Jackson's voice came through again, sharp and calm. "Stay where you are, Keller. Upload the mirrored logs. I'm going to the boardroom." "No," Mira said, panic rising. "If he's controlling the narrative, they'll believe him first. You'll look like you're covering for me." Jackson paused. "You have a better idea?" "Yes," she said, breath quickening. "Let me go to him." Silence. Then Keller said, "She's right. He expects you to run, not confront. If she faces him head-on, he'll overplay his hand." Jackson's sigh was barely audible. "Mara, if you do this—" "I know," she cut in. "Just trust me, the way you did before." The confrontation happened in the executive lounge, just before dawn. The city still slept, a ghost world outside the glass. Vincent was pouring himself coffee when she walked in. He looked almost amused. "You should have run while you could." "I'm not running," Mira said. "I came to ask why." "Why what?" "Why ruin a company that could have made you rich honestly?" He laughed softly. "Because honest doesn't buy power, Ms. Jensen. Money does. And now that you're my perfect scapegoat, I'll have plenty of both." He set down his cup. "Your fake trail was impressive, by the way. Too impressive. I almost thought you might actually pull it off." Her pulse pounded. "You knew." "I knew the second you started poking around. You're not the first to notice. The others just didn't last." Her breath hitched. "You mean—" He shrugged. "Accidents happen." Mara forced her voice steady. "You made one mistake, Vincent." "And what's that?" "I'm not alone." He turned, brows furrowing, just as the doors opened behind him. Jackson walked in, flanked by Keller and 2 federal agents. Vincent's smirk faltered. "What the hell is this?" Jackson's voice was a quiet blade. "The end of your game." Keller held up her tablet. "We traced your full access path, Vincent. Your server initiated unauthorized data transfers at 10:43 p.m. to external accounts matching Trinox's shell identities. You're finished." Vincent's composure cracked for the first time. "You can't prove I meant to." Intent doesn't matter, Keller said. Digital signature does, and yours is stamped all over it. Jackson stepped closer, his voice low. You almost got away with it. I'll give you that. But you underestimated the woman you tried to break. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the hum of the servers. Then Vincent laughed bitterly. So that's what this is. The billionaire and his charity case take down the villain together. How poetic. Mira met his gaze, calm now. No, Vincent, just the truth catching up. As the agents closed in, he sneered. Enjoy your victory. Helix will eat you both alive. Jackson didn't reply. He just turned to Mira and said quietly, It's over. But deep down, they both knew it wasn't. Not yet. The agents walked Vincent out in handcuffs before sunrise. It should have felt like the end of a long nightmare. Instead, Helix woke to another one. By noon, every screen in the lobby played the same Chiron. Helix CFO arrested, CEO investigated in parallel. Reporters clustered outside like birds around a flickering streetlight. Employees moved in tense currents from conference room to conference room, whispering, refreshing news feeds, pretending to work. At 12:41 p.m., a push alert hit everyone's phones at once, an internal broadcast from the board. Effective immediately, the board has voted to place Mr. Albright on temporary administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Acting CEO, Paula Crane, independent director. Mira read it twice, nausea pooling under her ribs. Across the open floor, she saw people glance toward Jackson's office and away again, as if eye contact with an empty doorway could indict them. Ava appeared at Mira's desk with 2 paper cups and a quiet face. He's out, she said, meaning Jackson, not Vincent. They made it unanimous. On what grounds? Mira managed. Public optics. Restoring confidence. Ava's mouth was a flat line. And there's more. She set her tablet down. A PDF sat open. Anonymous complaint array. Bribery and conflicts, complete with fabricated message logs showing Mira receiving direct payments from Jackson in exchange for altering audit results. Mira stared at the screen, words turning to static. That's not just a smear. That's detailed. They had access, Ava said. Vincent's people or someone who owes him. The board's counsel filed a preservation order on your workstation. You'll be escorted out in an hour. Escorted, Mira repeated, the syllables brittle. Like I did something wrong. Ava's eyes softened. Like they're afraid of what you know. Mira's phone buzzed. A single message from Jackson. Conference room 6B. Now. Go, Ava said. I'll stall. 6B was one of the small rooms, the kind people use for interviews and small humiliations. Jackson stood by the glass wall with Keller, both of them looking like sleep was something that happened to other people. His tie was gone. The careful armor he wore to board meetings had been replaced by a gray sweater and a resolve that somehow looked heavier. They move fast, Keller said, sliding a folder toward her. Vincent retained counsel last week. White shoe firm, crisis PR. Arrest was step 1 of his plan, not the end. Mira sank into a chair. That complaint, fabricated, Keller said. We'll prove it, but first we have to survive the next 48 hours. Jackson's eyes found Mira's. They're putting you on administrative leave. They'll take your badge, your devices, your access. They'll call it neutral. It isn't. Then what do we do? Mira asked. Keller tapped the folder. We make another move, something they don't expect. She flipped it open. Inside was a 1-page memo. Dry language, corporate letterhead, a subject line that sounded as exciting as a stapler. Ethics hotline transition and retrospective amnesty. Looks boring, Mira said. It's bait, Keller replied. We'll float it where Vincent's allies can see. The memo says Helix is granting a 72-hour amnesty for anyone who discloses past violations tied to vendor onboarding. No prosecution if they self-report now. We embed an invisible tracking pixel and unique token in each copy. Anyone who forwards, prints, or screenshots it lights up on our board. Mira followed. When the guilty ones panic, they'll circulate it. And when they do, Keller said, we follow the pattern back to the root. Whoever's still managing the offsite accounts and legal cover. Jackson leaned closer. We tried code. We tried courts. Now we try fear. Mira stared down at the memo. And if they don't bite? Then we go public the hard way, Keller said. But if we can name the network, board members, legal cover, external banks, we can force the Attorney General's office to move fast and the board to back down. Mira held the memo like it was heavier than a single page had any right to be. Send it, she said. Keller smiled without humor. Already did. The escort came on schedule. 2 compliance officers with soft voices and hard eyes. Mira packed a canvas tote with a sweater, a photo of Noah with a crooked paper crown, and the plant Teresa had insisted would keep the office honest. As she walked toward the elevators, people looked up and then deliberately looked back down. It was easier that way for everyone. At the turnstile, Ava intercepted the escorts with a stack of signatures to verify and a misprint to correct. "Half an hour," she whispered as she handed Mira a plain envelope. Inside, a MetroCard, a cheap burner phone, and a key with a yellow tag. "Just in case they decide to misplace your exit paperwork. Address is on the tag. Safe place." "Ava," Mira said, throat tight. "Why?" "Because I remember trying to make rent on the truth." For a second, the composed mask slipped. "Go." The safe place was a storefront that used to be a photo lab, now an empty square that smelled faintly of developer and dust. Jackson was already there, seated on an old stool, a map of the city unfurled across the counter. It wasn't the city as tourists knew it. It was a lattice of nodes, banks, servers, law firms, anonymous LLCs, each pinned with colored tacks and labeled in Keller's precise hand. "Amnesty memo?" Mara asked, shutting the door. "Lighting up," he said, tapping 3 pins that had turned red. 2 internal forwards, 1 print, and 1, his finger traced a line to a new pin. "External legal counsel." They sent it off-site. Keller's voice came tinny through the burner. "Got the packet hop. It hit a boutique firm that ran shell paperwork for Vincent's Zurich phase. From there, it routed to a numbered account manager. And from there, hold. We have a match. The trust that owns Trinox's parent shell is administered by a private office out of Midtown. Care to guess whose?" "Don't make me," Mara said. "Board chairs," Keller answered. "Paula Crane." "Acting CEO," Jackson said flatly. The room tilted a degree. "She voted me out while shielding the theft." Keller didn't gloat. "This is what power does when it thinks it's anonymous." Her tone shifted. "I'm pushing a sealed packet to the AG's office and an embargoed brief to 3 outlets. We need one more piece for a slam dunk. Intent. If we can get Paula or her chief of staff to acknowledge the amnesty memo in writing, anything that suggests awareness, we can tie her to the cover-up." "How?" Mara asked. Jackson's eyes moved from the map to her. "You're still the person they underestimate." She shook her head. "I've already been escorted out. If I ping them, I look desperate." "Exactly," Keller said. "You'll write to Paula's chief of staff from your personal email. No work tone. Say you've been summoned to give a statement to the AG tomorrow. You're anxious. Ask whether the previous vendor arrangements fall under the amnesty because you don't want to be the only one without protection." "It's ugly," Mara said. "It's effective," Keller replied. "Her reply, if she sends one, will either admit knowledge or panic. Either is good for us." Mira thumbed the burner's cracked screen and typed the message, each keystroke like walking barefoot across a room full of broken ornaments. She hit send and put the phone down as if heat lived in it. Minutes stretched. The city outside moved. Somewhere a delivery truck whined into reverse. Somewhere a child laughed. Somewhere elevators flashed people upward like coins flicked into a wish fountain. The phone buzzed. Keller put her on speaker. Paula's chief of staff had replied with professional speed and fatal vagueness. "Please do not email on this channel. All prior arrangements are covered through Friday EOD. Nothing further is required if your paperwork matches the vendor guidance we discussed. As a reminder, the board intends a cooperative posture with regulators." Keller exhaled. Evasion and acknowledgement in the same breath. "That's our intent." Jackson closed his eyes. When he opened them, the muscle in his jaw had stopped ticking. "Send it." "Already gone," Keller said. "AG confirms receipt. Embargo lifts at 6 a.m. If the board tries to claw you, the story will eat their hands." "Vincent?" Mara asked. "Bailed," Keller said. "He'll run out of continent eventually." Silence settled, different than the day's earlier silences. This one not empty, but full of something beginning to turn. Go home, Keller added. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow is public. Home was smaller than she remembered, but kinder. Teresa had taped a paper star to the door that said, "You got this, Queen," and for once the sentiment didn't make Mara want to hide. Noah slept with one fist curled around the ear of the fox blanket. She watched him for a while, letting the rise and fall of his chest teach her body how to breathe again. Her personal phone buzzed, a number she didn't know. She stared at it a second too long and then answered. "Ms. Jensen," said a woman's calm voice. "This is Assistant Attorney General Miriam Cho. We've received the materials from your team. Thank you. We'll need your sworn statement at 8 a.m. Can you be at our office with any devices you control?" "Yes," Mira said. A pause. "I also want you to know this. We don't need you to be perfect. We need you to be precise." "I can do precise," Mira said, and felt the truth of it click into place like a well-fitted part. After she hung up, she texted Jackson. "Statement at 8. "You?" he replied. 8, same building, different floor. "They'll separate us to test the story. Tell the truth. I'll match it." She typed, "I'm afraid." He answered, "Good. Fear keeps us honest." She almost wrote, "And what keeps us safe?" but didn't. Instead, "See you on the other side." The morning broke with headlines that hit like a gavel. Acting CEO tied to offshore shells linked to CFO scheme. Amnesty memo triggers, state inquiry into Helix board. Whistleblower under suspension identified as source. Ava texted a single line, "We're with you." Then a photo of a break room whiteboard where someone had written, "Assume sunlight. Document anyway." At the AG's office, the hall smelled like coffee and copy paper and truth. They separated her from Jackson as promised. The investigators' questions were meticulous but not cruel. Mira answered with lines and timestamps and vendor IDs, and the quiet timeline of how a wrong number became a job became a discovery, and a discovery became a war. When it was over, the investigator capped her pen and said, "We may subpoena you for a grand jury. You okay with that?" Mira surprised herself. "Yes." On the way out, she met Jackson's eyes across the lobby. He looked smaller without the building around him, and somehow more solid. Neither of them waved. They didn't need to. Outside, the city felt changed. Not safer, not kinder, but awake. A message from Keller buzzed the burner. Board convening emergency session. Paula resigning. Interim committee to be named. We did not lose the day. Mira stood on the steps for a moment, the winter sunlight cutting the buildings into clean edges. She thought of Vincent somewhere in motion, of Paula drafting a statement, of Keller at 3 screens, of Ava drawing a new org chart with a steadier hand. She thought of the first text she'd sent, the one that had cracked her life open. She thought inexplicably of how the wrong number had never felt less like an accident. Her phone vibrated again. Jackson. "Dinner?" "Nothing fancy. Something edible," she wrote back. "After I buy our son a new pack of slow-flow nipples and a plant for the office that survives fluorescent light." After a beat, his ellipses appeared. "Our son?" She smiled, flushed with embarrassment and something warmer. "The company, not, you know." "Ah," he wrote. "Helix is greedy, but not that greedy." She tucked her phone away, breath fogging in the air, and began walking toward the future they had made complicated and possible. Tomorrow would be another fight. But today the board was cornered, the story was true, and the graves hadn't collapsed. They'd been marked. The wind outside howled against the glass of Mara's apartment, as if the city itself was warning her not to get too comfortable. It had been only 2 days since the expose detonated. The scandal had consumed Helix Core like wildfire. Paula Crane's resignation, Vincent's flight, the sudden cascade of executives scrambling to rewrite their loyalties. Yet for Mira, there had been no sense of triumph, only exhaustion and a strange, hovering quietness. The phone hadn't stopped ringing. Reporters, lawyers, former colleagues, old classmates who now called her the whistleblower. She ignored all of it. The only message she answered was from Jackson. No board, No badge. But I still have work. Come in tomorrow, back entrance. You'll see why. She read it 3 times before replying. I'll come. At dawn, Mara took the subway to Midtown. She wore no Helix badge, no blazer, no pretense. The city was gray and humid, the streets slick with last night's rain. The back entrance of Helix Tower didn't look like much anymore. Just a steel door and 2 guards who didn't even glance at her. Keller met her inside, chewing the end of a pen, surrounded by boxes of confiscated drives and sealed evidence bags. You look alive, Keller said. That's more than I can say for half this company. Mara gave a tired smile. What's all this? Clean up, Keller said, gesturing to the mountain of drives. And reconstruction. The AG's team froze the main servers for forensic imaging, but Helix's research division still runs on backup nodes. We're pulling the data before the board's new puppets reorganize it. And Jackson? In the lab. He's different today. Keller hesitated a beat, then lowered her voice. Be careful. He hasn't slept. And when geniuses don't sleep, they start trying to rewrite the laws of physics and human emotion. The lab was dim, lit only by the blue glow of holographic displays. Jackson stood in the center like a conductor before an orchestra of data. The air smelled faintly of ozone and coffee. He looked up when she entered. You came. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. Mira set her bag down, watching him. You look worse than the building. He smiled faintly. Victory doesn't suit me. Then why are you here instead of letting the prosecutors finish what you started? Because Helix isn't just a company, he said. It's a network of research, some of which can't survive a political bloodbath. Paula's replacement will strip it for parts. The grants, the clinical trials, they'll be sold off before the week ends unless we prove they're still operational. So you want to save it? He turned a display toward her. Data cascaded in shimmering columns, genomic sequences, protein modeling, encrypted funding chains. You exposed the rot. Now I need you to prove the body's still alive. Mara stared at the screens. You trust me with this? I don't trust anyone else, he said simply. For hours they worked side by side. The hum of machines filled the silence, punctuated only by the clack of keys and the occasional sigh. Keller came and went, ferrying data packets and updates from the AG's liaison. At one point, Jackson leaned over Mara's shoulder, eyes scanning a cluster of flagged files. His voice was low. See this pattern? The missing research grants. Vincent rerouted them into shell labs. But some of those labs produced results. Someone out there continued Helix's cancer program even after the money vanished. Mara frowned. You mean the fraud funded real science? He nodded. Ironically, yes. It means not all the diverted funds were theft. Some became something worth saving. They looked at each other. 2 people caught in a moral paradox. So what happens if we find those labs? She asked. We protect them, he said, even if it means burning what's left of the old Helix. That night, Keller called from the war room upstairs. Bad news, she said. The interim board's convening tomorrow. They're voting on dissolution, splitting Helix's research arm to multiple private buyers. Once that happens, your data's property of whoever pays fastest. Mira turned to Jackson. We're out of time. He rubbed his temple, mind racing. Then we need to move the research before they do. Move it where? Keller asked. He looked at Mara. You still have that encrypted storage from the Trinox investigation? She blinked. Yes, but it's off network. Perfect, he said. We'll migrate the full data set there. Then we'll leak a partial version to the public domain, just enough to prove Helix's research has humanitarian value. That'll tie the board's hands. They can't sell something the public already has access to. Keller's laugh was dry. You're blackmailing them with transparency. Poetic. It's survival, he said. They began the transfer just past midnight. The server room thrummed like a heartbeat as encrypted drives blinked in rhythm. Mira typed code after code, her hands steady despite the fatigue. When it was done, Jackson loaded the last drive into a secure case and handed it to her. Keep it off-site, somewhere only you know. Where will you be? She asked. Facing the board in the morning. She hesitated. They'll eat you alive. He smiled, a weary, beautiful thing. Then at least they'll choke on the truth. Morning came gray and cold. The Helix boardroom was full. Every chair occupied by men and women who'd built empires out of sterile smiles. Cameras lined the back wall, public broadcast for transparency. Mara watched from the sidelines beside Keller. Jackson stood at the head of the table, a calm storm in human form. "Before you vote," he said, "you deserve full disclosure. The research Helix developed under Project Aegis, what Paula Crane intended to bury, has been restored. It's safe, verified, and already partially distributed to open access databases worldwide." A ripple of alarm went through the room. "You leaked proprietary research?" one board member barked. Jackson didn't flinch. "You don't own a cure. Humanity does." Another leaned forward. "You've doomed this company." "No," he said. "I freed it from you." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the board's counsel whispered something to the acting chair. She cleared her throat, face tight. "Mr. Albright, you've left us no choice but to formalize your termination, effective immediately." Jackson nodded once, as if relieved. "Good. Now maybe we can start doing something real." He turned to leave. On the way out, his gaze brushed Mira's. It wasn't defeat in his eyes. It was closure. That evening, Mira returned to her apartment with the drive still in her bag. She set it on the table beside Noah's formula bottles and just stared at it. Inside those few terabytes lived everything: proof, research, hope. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jackson. "It's done. The world knows. Keller's safe. The AG will keep pushing. If you ever need me, don't text the wrong number again. Just call this one." She laughed softly, tears burning the corners of her eyes. "You'll miss my wrong numbers," she typed back. His reply came a minute later. "Every day." She looked out the window at the skyline of a city rebuilt on truth, the lights flickering like neurons firing back to life. Helix was broken, but maybe that was the point. Broken things let the light in, and for the first time, Mara Jensen believed that maybe she had too. The city had changed since that first text. Mara could feel it in the air, the way strangers looked less hurried, the way morning sunlight filtered softer through the towers of glass. Or maybe, she thought, it was her who had changed. 3 months had passed since the Helix scandal collapsed under its own weight. The Attorney General's office had concluded the investigation. Vincent Harmon had pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud, and Paula Crane's offshore assets were seized. The story had dominated headlines for weeks before fading, replaced by the next crisis. But some things endured. Helix Core survived, not as a monolith of profit, but as a leaner, cleaner research foundation. The government had appointed a temporary oversight committee, then later a permanent executive board, with one surprising addition: Mara Jensen, Director of Internal Audit. It was strange wearing a title she'd never dreamed of. Stranger still, walking into the same building where she'd once begged for a chance to be heard. Now people nodded to her in the halls, smiled, listened. But what no one knew, not the board, not the press, was that Jackson had disappeared the day after the hearings concluded. No press statement, no farewell speech, just a single letter sent to her desk in an unmarked envelope. "You were the right person for the wrong moment. The world will always need people who question, not just those who build. Protect Helix, and don't wait for me." She kept that note folded inside her wallet like a secret prayer she wasn't ready to stop believing. The first Monday of the new fiscal quarter, Mara arrived early. The building still smelled faintly of paint from the recent renovations. The Helix logo had been redesigned, a simple spiral of silver and blue, elegant, human. She'd approved the final version herself. Ava Lynn, now Chief Operations Officer, met her in the lobby. "Press conference in 2 hours," Ava said. "You ready?" Mara smiled. "Ready enough. You know, you could let PR do the talking this time." "And miss watching their faces when I mention open source ethics compliance? Not a chance." Ava grinned. "That's the spirit." They walked together through the hallways. Every screen flickered with the same banner: Helix Core rebuilt. Transparency first. In the weeks following the scandal, Mara had spearheaded something unheard of in corporate science: publishing Helix's internal financial framework online. Every transaction, every funding line, every donation traceable by anyone. The first day it went live, social media had called it madness. The second day, other companies began copying it. It had taken her 6 years of loss and one wrong text to discover that transparency was a kind of revenge, one that healed instead of hurt. At 10 a.m., Tidra, she stood behind the podium in the Helix atrium, cameras flashing. 3 months ago, she began, voice steady, Helix was a symbol of greed. Today, it's a symbol of accountability. Every mistake, every shadow, every compromise has been recorded, reviewed, and rebuilt. We can't undo what was done, but we can make sure it never happens again. Reporters jotted notes, some skeptical, some inspired. One asked, Ms. Jensen, do you believe in second chances for people like Jackson Albright? The question hit harder than she expected. I believe in learning from the wrong choices that brought us here, she said carefully. Some people run because they've already built what they came to build. My job is to keep it standing. The cameras clicked faster. She smiled faintly. That's all for today. When she stepped down, Ava squeezed her hand. Well played, Mira exhaled. I hate microphones. They love you, Ava said. You've turned a scandal into a doctrine. Not bad for someone who once texted the wrong billionaire. Mira laughed softly. Don't remind me. That evening, she returned home to the quiet rhythm of Noah's world. Soft cartoons playing, the hum of a bottle warmer, the tiny sighs of a toddler who believed she was invincible. Mommy's home, she whispered, scooping him up. His small fingers brushed the Helix ID badge still clipped to her jacket. Lex, he mumbled, trying to say Helix. She smiled. Close enough. After he fell asleep, she stood by the window, city lights blinking like Morse code. The wind carried faint echoes of sirens and laughter and life. Her phone buzzed on the table. A new number. No caller ID. For a moment, her heart stuttered. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. Mara Jensen, she said. Silence. Then a familiar voice, quiet and composed. Still answering unknown numbers, I see. Her breath caught. Jackson. Good to know I'm not completely deleted from your contact list. She laughed, startled. Where are you? Away, he said. For now, I needed distance. From the board, from the mess, from myself. I heard rumors you were in Geneva, or Nepal, or hiding in some lab under the Arctic. None of those, though the last one sounds peaceful. She leaned against the counter, the old ache resurfacing. You missed quite the transformation here. I didn't miss it, he said. I watched from afar. You've done what I never could, built something incorruptible. Nothing's incorruptible, she said, just harder to break. There was a pause long enough for both of them to remember the things they hadn't said. Then he asked, Do you still have it? She hesitated. The drive? Yes. Locked away. Keep it, he said, not because of what's on it, but because of what it means. Proof that the truth mattered once. Once? She echoed. He smiled through the line. It always will. But sometimes someone has to remind the world. You did that. Her throw.